Welcome back. Oil prices this morning are higher. Take a look. The price of crude at $66.59. Prices jumped over the last week as tensions are spiking with Iran. Traders are pricing in the growing risk of military action from the United States, fearing that a war would disrupt the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran exports roughly 1.5 million barrels a day, mostly to China, with roughly 20% of global oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. It's a very important waterway. The president now considering reportedly, quote, limited strikes on Iran to force the supreme leader into meeting U.S. demands in upcoming negotiations. This week, I spoke with Florida Congressman Brian Mast. He's the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He talked about potential military action from the U.S. Watch.
I expect that Iran does not take the diplomatic off-ramp and that it comes to a strike for the president to protect the homeland of the United States of America, which absolutely this is against an imminent threat against the American people. I can give one example of Americans literally killed. The beginning of 2024, 3 American service members killed by the hand of Iran while they were in Jordan. That's one example. Continual attempts to fly drones to our merchant marine fleet, drones to our Navy vessels, you name it. They are constantly threatening America, and the president says no more. This comes to an end.
Joining me now is the former U.S. Energy Secretary under President Trump's first term, Dan Brouillette. Great to see you, Secretary. Thanks so much for being here. Energy Secretary Christopher Wright was in Paris last week for the International Energy Agency ministerial meeting. I want to get to that in a moment. What are your expectations in terms of this unrest with Iran?
Well, good to be with you, Maria. Look, I think what we're seeing in the market today is the pricing of risk, the risk that a supply contract will not be honored either through lack of transport through the Straits of Hormuz or other issues associated with those supply contracts. But what we're not seeing is a lack of supply in the marketplace. That is traditionally what would drive prices higher. Demand being is what it is and a lack of supply. That is not the case today. Oil is plentiful in the marketplace. We are producing more oil here in the United States than we ever have. We're setting records, and that's bringing stability to the marketplace. So rather than $100 a barrel oil today, we're seeing prices in the mid-60s, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah, and of course, the supply in the market you would think would send prices lower, Secretary. So explain that to us, because with all of the supply in the market, you would expect prices to go down.
Well, I think you will see them stabilize over a period of time. So we're looking at mid-60 today. It won't surprise me that we see it go down slightly, especially if we have a situation in Iran where they return to what might be referred to as polite society. If this regime goes away and that oil becomes available, we're looking at potentially another, maybe 1.5 barrels of oil coming onto the world market. That's going to significantly alter the supply situation, and it could push prices slightly lower. But I think today, again, as my good friend Tala Gadarzi points out, she's the former Assistant Secretary of Fossil Energy at DOE, she points out this is really a risk price today. It is not a supply price. And I think we're going to see that for some time to come.
I mentioned Energy Secretary Chris Wright in Paris last week for the International Energy Agency ministerial meeting, succeeding in the administration's goal of rolling back the net zero climate change policies, Obama's climate change agenda, after threatening to quit the agency overall. Here's the Energy Secretary. I want to get your reaction. Watch this.
We want the IEA to return to its original mission that it executed very well, of carefully recording energy data across the planet and coordinating among the major energy consumers about trends in energy, about storage flows, and about how to handle disruptions. The U.S. will use all the pressure we have to get the IEA to eventually, in the next year or so, move away from this agenda. Nations are free to engage in any agenda they want, but the energy agency founded for energy security needs to focus on energy security and not energy impoverishment.
Dan, your reaction.
He's exactly right. The IEA was created in 1974 as a result of the oil embargo of 1973. Nations came together because they realized that there were structural issues in the oil markets that they needed to address, and they needed independent, objective analysis of energy supply and energy demand around the world, and the IEA proved itself throughout that period. It has moved, however, from energy analysis to energy advocacy, and that's a problem. What we've seen over the last perhaps 5 years or so is this agency becoming more and more like an environmental NGO, producing reports that suggest that we're going to reach peak oil demand. And the point of that, I think many people thought, was to stifle investment in things like fossil fuels. And that's dangerous. It's dangerous because the organization becomes very, very political, but it's also dangerous because it endangers our national security. If these investments are not made in energy security and fossil fuels, in the things that keep our lights on and provide us with economic security, then we're going to have real problems, not only here in the United States, but all around the world.
Yeah, great point. Meanwhile, the president has launched Project Vault, a strategic reserve of domestic rare earth minerals in an effort to reduce the U.S.'s reliance on China. The project, headed by U.S. Export-Import Bank, with a $10 billion loan to help supply chains and store raw materials. I spoke with the president of the Export-Import Bank, John Yovanovitch, on this program last week. Watch this.
What we did was we linked Project Vault and the Strategic Critical Minerals Reserve to our U.S. geological list. And so there are 60 critical minerals identified, 17 of which are rare earth elements, and all are eligible for the vault. We are not telling the market what the market needs. The market is sending us these signals because the manufacturers who are going to benefit most, they're the ones chipping in to make sure this is possible. We've approved our largest loan in our 92-year history. We're proud to have done so, of $10 billion. But we've also got private sector capital coming to the table. And that, I think, is what's going to make this not just scalable, but also a long-term success.
Dan, very important project here, given the fact that China has tried to hold back rare earth minerals, not just from the U.S., but from Japan and other major players.
No, absolutely right, Maria. What we've seen here is China dominating the processing market around these critical minerals. And what they've done is they've put a stranglehold on many of the products that we have come to rely upon in our daily lives. And John has this exactly right. He made an important point here when he said the market will determine, the producers, the manufacturers will determine what they need, and that will determine what is actually stored in this vault. The government plays an important role here with providing that seed capital, but it's important that we let the products and the markets determine what is actually needed. I think this is very much like what we've done with the National Petroleum Reserve, what we do with the National Gasoline Reserve in the Northeast. It provides stability to the market. It gives CEOs of these important industries certainty as to whether or not these products will be available. I cannot overstate how important this is.
And I remember when President Trump was buying oil for the Strategic Oil Reserve at rock-bottom prices. Dan, how would you assess the Strategic Reserve today?
Look, I think it's coming back up. Chris and his team at DOE are doing a great job of trying to buy this oil and put it back into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve after it's been severely depleted during the Biden administration.
Yes, I remember.
That's critical infrastructure for here in the United States, and it's important that it be filled.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, Biden was using it for political reasons and not what it's supposed to be used for, strategic emergencies. Dan, thanks very much for weighing in on all of that. Good to see you. Dan Brouillette, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Good to see you.